And I started to kind of develop the business around it. And I think by the time I had left the job, I had already done around like 10 land flips, buying and selling. So I had made 6-figure profits in that. So I knew it was pretty good as a side gig. So that's how when I quit medicine after 6 months of shock, I was like, you know what, let's just utilize this time and do something more about it. Then I started to create more systems, started to hire people, and then kind of solidified the whole business plan around the non-investing.
Welcome to the Physicians and Properties Podcast, the show where we teach you how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want.
Doctor!
Now, here's your host, Dr. Alex Schlow.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Physicians and Properties. Today, we have with us Dr. Kumar, who is crushing it in the land investing space and doing a lot of great things in real estate. Really excited to have her on. So let's go ahead and get started. Dr. Kumar, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So excited to have you on the podcast. How are things going in Texas?
It's good. It's very hot, but we're just trying to stay cold and we're mostly indoors.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad the power plants are holding out and you guys are doing okay with the heat wave.
Yep.
So, well, hey, happy to have you on the podcast. If you don't mind, let's just kind of get started with your story. So first we'll kind of hit medicine and how that pivoted to real estate, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure. So I graduated in 2012 from internal medicine. I joined my first attending physician job in San Antonio. I felt my life had reached my goal. This is where the life is going to be. I bought a beautiful house. My husband was working full time there and we had a beautiful daughter there. I think, as we know, whenever we think we have reached where we are supposed to be and nothing is going to change, things started to change for me, especially when I started to have issues with my own health, which was autoimmune illness. And then I had a special need daughter at 24 weeks, which changed everything. And for the longest time, I tried to kind of still be in medicine and try to kind of balance the other things going on in my personal life. And I realized that I switched the town and also switched 4 jobs in between in a period of like 6 years. I was a primary care before, I switched to urgent care. Then I became a nocturnist. Then I became a part-time day hospitalist. And then pandemic was the last straw. I thought the part-time hospitalist work where I worked like 10 minutes from my house. I loved it. It was a teaching position. I was like, this is like teal. This is where I want to retire from. And then pandemic came and I was at high risk because of my own health condition and the special need daughter. I was like, gosh, like what am I going to do? And within a weekend, I went on a medical leave in March 2020 when my shifts were supposed to be due, when I was supposed to go back to work. And I just decided that I would go on extended leave. So from extended leave, I, put in the resignation at that time because I was waiting for the vaccine and vaccines were not inside within 6 months. After 6 months, I kind of resigned from that position. So that was the end of the medicine. But at the last job, I knew that I had to look for something else. It didn't seem like the medicine was going to be where I was sustained at the most a part-time or even lower. So I had started to kind of look for something on the side. And that's how I kind of got introduced to land investing, where I could do everything virtually. And I started to kind of develop the business around it. And I think by the time I had left the job, I had already done around like 10 land flips, buying and selling. So I had made 6-figure profits in that. So I knew it was pretty good as a side gig. So that's how when I quit medicine after 6 months of shock, I was like, you know what, let's just utilize this time and do something more about it. Then I started to create more systems, started to hire people, and then kind of, solidified the whole business plan around the non-investing.
Wow, that's incredible. We'll definitely unpack that. And what a cool journey and what a cool way to see how real estate has been able to let you do that and let you kind of get out of medicine. And certainly it sounds like, putting your family first, which is definitely most important, and your health, of course, as well. And so I'm glad that you were able to do that. And I hope that was helpful for you guys and your family going forward. And it sounds like it was, which is fantastic. Yeah. Well, why land?
So I was very nervous to real estate. I never thought I would ever do real estate. I was never looking into real estate. But one of our family friends who lived locally, he started to do this almost a year before us. And he kept on sharing the story whenever we would meet about his success in this. So I was like, when I was already cutting down the work, I thought like it would be a good idea to kind of just try, because I was already convinced with the fact that this works and it didn't require much of initial investment either. So I was like, you know what, there's no harm whatsoever. And I was working as a part-time hospitalist at that time. So I did have 2 weeks off where I could do things. So that's how we got started in that investing.
That's great. Yeah, well, they're not making any more land, that's for sure. So
Yes.
certainly helpful. When you started investing in land, was that also in Texas or was it somewhere else?
It was, yeah. So at that time, we kind of started, we were living in San Antonio before, and then I just moved to Austin. So anywhere like the suburbs and outskirts of San Antonio and Austin was the initial market where we started to see success back in 2018 before the Austin market exploded.
Yeah.
So that's where we started.
Very cool. How did you end up picking that market? Was it just more, hey, we're local, we see that this economy is booming here, folks are flocking to Austin and San Antonio, or did you have some insight to that?
I think there was a hidden trial in that. Obviously, there is a way to kind of look at the market and activity. And usually whenever I'm looking for a market, I would go and look for how many recent vacant lots of what size and what price point has sold in certain neighborhood. And I create the list of the cities and the counties. Usually whenever I'm kind of looking at the marketing plan, I'll create the list of 10. And then I choose which 4 am I going to kind of pick up and then, get the data of the landowners and market to them. So it was not like I already knew these are 2 markets are going to work for me. It was just like hidden trial of combining the data set of like the 4 cities together and 4 other cities together. And whichever kind of hit, and we started to get the replies and we got the deals, then going back to the same county and putting in more, efforts there.
Sure. Well, before we get started, kind of diving into what does it look like investing in land and getting started, do you mind just kind of sharing with folks how many deals you've done? Because that blew me away. And kind of what your portfolio looks like at this point, if you're comfortable sharing that.
Yeah, sure. So my goal is never to kind of buy and hold the land. My goal is pretty much to kind of buy and sell it pretty fast. Mm-hmm. So when we entered this year, usually I would count the numbers by the end of the year. By the end of the year, we were close to 100. And this year we have already sold around 15 lots, and there are 3, 4, 5 in contract right now.
Wow. Yeah. So moving quickly for sure.
Yeah, that's the goal. The average day of hold when I checked last time was around 90 to 114 days. But someone definitely is staying a little longer with us now, especially with the market change.
And then do you invest in other forms of real estate or just land?
Yes, I do invest in other real estate as well, just because when you're buying and selling the land for the profit at such a fast pace, any profit which you make is going to be taxable. Yeah. So to be tax efficient, we also buy single family duplexes, short rental or midterm rental for the cost segregation and, the tax benefits. Yeah.
Definitely some great benefits, tax benefits for real estate for sure. So if I came to you and I wanted to get started investing in land, kind of walk me through that process if you don't mind. And I know you have an incredible coaching program for physicians, and we'll definitely talk about that and plug that. But how would I get started?
I think it totally depends on how much time you have in, hand.
Yeah.
And how much profit do you want to make? I really think these 2 questions you need to answer way before we kind of get into that. Because the way I do it, and when I started, I had more time and I wanted more profit. Yeah. So I was analyzing the market. I was direct mailing or texting, whatever way you choose. You market to the landowners. Then the leads coming in, you sort it out, you negotiate, and then you buy the property and then you will sell it. That's a process which I chose, which I really think is very profitable, but it can be time intensive as well. But the other way, if somebody's like, no, I do not have that much time, but I would like to I do not want to do 100 deals. I want to do 2 or 4 deals per year. Then you are able to kind of connect and look for the properties in the market and see, once you know your areas, then you know what the market value for certain lots can be. And then you compare and do your analysis, and then you can start putting in the offers for whatever is listed in the market. And the third way would be do you want to flip pretty fast, or do you want to buy and hold, which could be the land banking way, which could be profitable as well, because I realized a lot of lots which I sold, bought and sold pretty fast in 2018, if I held it, the property's values have gone and quadrupled. So, but my model is not that. I really think even that model can be very, very useful and be a good way to not invest too much time in it, but just buy it, just hold it. So there are these 3 different models which you can definitely employ depending upon whatever resources one has.
Very cool. You said the hold time typically for you is 90 to 114 days or so.
Yeah.
What made you decide you're going to flip land or have that quick turnover with land versus holding it or doing like seller financing back to someone who wanted to rent out that land?
So for me, I was working full-time as a nocturnist. That's when I realized that medicine was something which is not a long-term career for me at this rate and at this pace. So I cut down. And my resignation period was 6 months. So I put in the resignation without knowing what I'm going to do. And then I kind of just slowed down everything. And then I realized I needed something which I was able to kind of work on the side, but I was able to kind of make 6-figure income per year. And if I can do it virtually without even going and visiting the land, that would be so awesome. And I didn't honestly have, I was not a person who looked into my finances until then, right? I was not saving a lot to invest. So I didn't have a lot of money sitting where I could put in a 6-figure down payment and get a long-term rental or short-term rental either. So Flip gave me, I think 6 figures. We probably got after 7 to 8 properties. So it was kind of pretty easy to buy and sell pretty fast. And I was like, okay, my salary is cut into half and I go part-time. So I needed 6-figure more to supplement. So I was just doing maths in my mind. And it just made sense for me to just buy and sell and just supplement so that I reached to my initial income level even when I cut down my job. So that's the mindset which I had at that time when I decided to do this.
That's a great mindset to have. I've never bought land before. What does the deal structure look like? Down payment look like? Financing? What's that kind of look like?
I think everything depends on what kind of deals you have. We have never used any of the banks at any time so far because the deals which we have bought has been very small and it's been cash based. We'll just buy it for cash and we'll sell it for the cash or seller financing, which will give us some monthly payments. So it has always been cash and we always recirculate the same income coming back in to purchase more lot and more, something like that. Usually we do what is the infill lots, which is right inside the city or right outside the city, where the lots are around a quarter acre to an acre. So we are able to kind of buy it and sell it pretty fast to somebody. Now we are trying to go in for the bigger lots where we are doing a little bit of syndication, some bank financing as well. But most of our lots are still we buy for cash, we sell it for cash, or seller finance it.
Okay. And you're getting a lot of these off-market, cold calling, direct mail, those sorts of things? Okay.
Yeah.
What's been more successful for you? Has it been the cold calling, the off-market, or just kind of depends?
It's an interesting question because I really think the market has changed quite a bit. I really think when we started in 2018, we did direct market by direct mail. Even throughout the pandemic, we did the direct mail. A year ago, we had started to notice that the market was changing. Somehow, the direct mail alone was not working. Then we started to kind of text. We added text to that. And now we are doing combination of some direct mail, texting to the same leads and kind of sequence sort of things right now.
Sure. Kind of that deal funnel and continuing to contact folks.
Yeah. So once we know, we identify our lots, which we are interested in, and we kind of heavily market on those. That's the plan for this quarter.
Very cool. Are you still mainly focused in Texas or are you guys buying land in other areas?
We're going in the other states as well, but it seems like the Texas laws and the market understand the best. But we keep on checking other markets like Oklahoma, North Carolina, Georgia. We have done some deals there, New Mexico. So we are in different states as well. But I think 80 to 85% of our lots have been in the market. And even the marketing is in Texas and the one which we have acquired has been in Texas. Just because I think I understand this market way, way better because I'm located in Texas as well.
Yeah, that's great. Typically our folks come in, so you're buying these properties off market and then they're infill lots. Are folks coming and then buying them to build or develop those lots after they purchase them from you or the most part?
I've not sold any of the lots to the builders. I really think that would be a good exit strategy. But usually these are the buyers. Either they have the intention of plan to build right now, or sometime in near future or investment purposes. We also focus more on unrestricted lots where there is no restrictions from the city or the county. So they can even put an RV or a mobile home, which is way cheaper, and manufactured home. And then they're able to kind of just stay there in town. So I really think that's like 80% of our lots will have no restrictions. That's where I kind of focus the most because I'm able to sell those lots the fastest.
Yeah, I know some folks who buy land here in Colorado, and that's what they do as well. And typically they'll sell or finance it back, so they're still getting that monthly cash flow, which is really cool. Ballpark, like how much cash would somebody need to get started doing this and buying some of these land deals? I know it depends, but what's kind of typical for you from what you've seen in your experience?
I really think it totally depends. Like when we started very low because at that time I was able to kind of find the lots at very cheap too. But at this market, probably 10 to 20K at least. Even if you're either planning on direct marketing by yourself or you're finding a lot from the market. I really think having that 20 to 25K of that investment amount where you can buy one lot for around 25K, then you're able to sell it for 40 or something and then make that profit and then continue to go from there. I think that would be, that will definitely accelerate. But again, if you're not able to have even that much funds, there are so many funders whom you can find who can invest with you. I don't think finances these days is such a big issue because of all other markets and stuff like that, which is not working so well. So I really think this is a strong something because I really think still comparing to any other real estate, like this is very least investment, which is going to be needed for the land investing because you could choose a very small lot in not so popular city, but still you can move it very fast.
Yeah. Well, and everybody has the fear of buying a rental property and having to go plunge toilets at 2 a.m. Which I've never done. But of course, for land, you don't have to worry about plunging. You don't have to worry about utilities. You don't have to worry about anything. I would imagine the only cost you have for holding it are taxes. And then, if you were to finance the payment
pretty
for
little.
That,
which is pretty little. And sometimes if you end up buying an HOA property, then some HOA. But again, that is minimal compared to what you're able to make because usually we'll buy a property for around like 20 to 25 to 50% of its market value.
Wow.
So there's still quite a bit of room of profit in there, which will cover the cost of it when we sell it. And we have probably like never held anything more than a year, even at the maximum. So it's not that much. When you look at the taxes of that, we cannot. It's barely like, a couple of $100s.
Sure. Wow. Well, yeah, that's really cool. Are there any red flags that you're like, hey, I absolutely do not buy land in this area or with this certain feature or anything like that?
Features, definitely. I really think area is very relative stuff, but features are slow. If it's like more than 15 to 10 degrees of slope, then I don't get into that because the cost of building goes up and that is very less desirable. And the next is a flood zone. And the third one is landlocked. If there's no physical road access or easement to the lot, that's too much hassle. I'm sure people can make it work, and I know people make it work, but these are the 2 categories I definitely don't go for. Like if we get a lead and if we have the checklist, and these 3 are the major ones. If it's any one of those, then we just let it go. We just don't pursue that lot.
Yeah, I'm sure that would limit your buyer pool of folks to purchase that property. Well, very cool. So it's incredible what you've built in the last few years and that you're running a 7-figure business virtually. What was that like getting a virtual business set up? And how has that been kind of transitioning out of medicine to now this new role that you have with your company?
It was definitely a hard and long journey, even though it seems like it has been just 3 years, not that long, but it feels very, very long journey because when I started, I didn't have any idea of like building the team, running it at the bigger scale. I was like, you know what? It can make 6 figures. Let's just keep on doing it. But I realized by the time I was able to replace my full physician income, I was working pretty much full time in this, and which was becoming stressful because I realized the whole idea of me doing this was to get that time freedom so that I can have my time back. And then I started to kind of hire people, try to hire because I hired and I fired. I didn't know what I was doing. I did that for 6 months. And then when I got the people in, then how do we communicate together as a team? Because earlier I was the one who was doing everything, but now how do we communicate and creating the system and the CRM and stuff like that? So almost like a year and a half went into that. But I think for past 1 year, We have had like there are 4 people in the team. Some have changed, but I think 2 people are still the same for more than a year. System has been pretty much more stable. So yeah, there was quite a bit of learning curve. And because as physicians, we are taught to be very hardworking, right? Like we work hard to get the harder results. But when you become a business owner, working hard is not the way to do the things. You want that time freedom too. But teaching others to do and creating the systems and very important, like simple checklists which somebody else can follow for you, that was hard. But now, even though it doesn't come that easy, but I feel comfortable if, like, for example, we just replaced 2 people in our business like a month and a half ago. This time I was not so like stressed out, like, oh my God, like, how are we going to do it? How are we going to train them? How are we going to do the transition? This was way, way easier compared to what I did before. And both of them are kind of thriving because their instructions are very clear and their role is very clear. So I kind of feel proud of myself that I'm able to kind of do that because that was not my skill for sure.
Yeah, that's tough. I'm learning that too. I hired a VA to help me out with the podcast and some other things. And I feel like we do a really good job as physicians delegating in the medical world, but I found it's so different. And I don't know how to run a podcast and edit a podcast and promote it and all those sorts of things. And so it's been a lot of learning for me too. Do you have any tips and tricks that you've learned along the way for finding good people and hiring good people?
So for me, what has worked, I would just go just like everybody would say, just go to Upwork and Fiverr or online.ph and find your VAs. But it's starting to notice that those people will just start disappearing or not showing up or will have some excuses. And I didn't like that. After you taught them everything, like how you want things to be done. And I noticed that my business was starting to get affected by that. So I started to get the VAs now from the third-party companies, even though probably they charged me double and they know they do charge me double. But I don't care about that because they would interview all the candidates. I give them just a skill set which I'm looking for. And they would interview for me. They would have those videos for me and they would their resumes and they will kind of introduce them to me. And they also are kind of guaranteeing you and they are supervising them because they're employee of that company. And then they contract with us and they give you a replacement guarantee as well. Like if this person doesn't work well, they are there to coach them. And then if that doesn't work out, they will give you the replacement. I really think I feel way more comfortable by having somebody from those companies. So 3 of the Philippines VA, which I have full time, is from those companies because they are going to be there just like a regular employee. If they are supposed to, if their work hour is 9 to 5, they are there sitting on the Slack. They just never disappear, which becomes very important for me because I could just go and look at the things and delegate in the morning and come back and check later in the evening that we know what's done and what's not done. So I don't have to keep on telling them. And after I taught them, I usually what we would do is like we would meet on Zoom and then I would record them. Hey, this is how we do things. And I'll share that video with them and they're able to kind of do that on their own and they have that video to refer. And we stay on Slack whole day. So I really think I am able to trust them way better. These people don't disappear. Once the skill is transferred, they are there to perform. And all I have to do is just kind of, if there's any loophole, if something comes up, which we have not addressed before, then all I have to do is just tweak and tell them like this was missed, then we're going to do this and that this way. So I really think that has made just kind of having that third party company who is getting the right people, who are not faking, who are not going away because of this or that reason, that has been game changing. And I'm able to trust even myself because I was like, I don't know if the problem is with me or it's not with the VA. I don't know what's the problem. But now even the trust has come back to me like, okay, I know how to do these things. It was just like those were not the right people.
Sure. Yeah, there's a great book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. And he talks about the key is to get the right people on the bus. And that's really difficult to do. And I am fortunate the first VA I've hired, she's been great. So now if you're listening, thank you. But yeah, I've heard a lot of those stories and it's often worth, paying the extra money or having that third party company. Even though you're paying more, I'm sure the amount of revenue that they've generated for your company is way more than that difference that you have.
And that's what I look at. I don't look at like the cost of them. If they're able to add value to the company, I think we're good because they do have quite a bit of skills. It's not like, just because they're in Philippines, I've found a lot of people with great English, very great organizational skills and stuff like that. There's quite a bit of talent there. It's just a matter of to be able to utilize them in the right ways, which is helpful for the company.
Yeah. And I think it's adding value monetarily with revenue that they're generating, but also time value and time freedom for you, which is really important. So I say same thing here from my end. I want to spend as much time with my family as I can, and I invest in real estate for the freedom to practice medicine how I want to in the future. And so I think it's really important to get that help and have good folks that can help you along that are frankly way better at certain things than you are. And yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great. So what does kind of day-to-day look like for you now? I mean, how much time are you putting into the business, and how's that working for you and that transition out of medicine been?
I think at each time when I feel like I'm able to kind of cut down way more time, I notice that I start to make tweaking and changing and hiring and changing the system. So usually I'll spend almost like 3 to 4 hours. And there are certain days like I would say like 10 to 15 for a week. And it could vary. If I'm trying to kind of hire somebody, then obviously it's going to be more. If I'm going to be changing some certain, stuff in the back end, like the way we do things, this person does this, the other person is going to, if somebody's like, I'm changing the whole system, the way I've taught them, then it requires like almost like 20 hours per week. But the time, like it's not like 8 to 5 I'm working or 8 to 10. It's very flexible and it goes around the family time, depending upon how I'm feeling and stuff like that. But around like 10 to 15 hours, just because like it's still a growing company. And now we are trying to transition to the bigger lots, which bigger dollar value is more at risk. The way we evaluate the smaller lots is different than the bigger one. So recently I've been working on that, like creating the protocol of how do we evaluate this bigger loss? Because I was doing it for the last 2 months and we got one in contract end, which is working well. But I'm like, I cannot be doing this. I need to teach my team. And how do I do that? So it's usually most of the brain work, which we need to do as a business owner to kind of grow and take the business to the next level, but not spending I don't spend more time. I just create the system and a process where they can follow those things. So I've already created a little system around that. Like 50% of the protocol is done and I've showed it to them and they've started to work on it. But if that was, I didn't implement this thing, probably 10 to 12 hours would have been fine.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible to hear, thinking about what you've been able to build and now having that time freedom in those 10 to 15 hours that you're working on. And I think the key from what I'm hearing for you is all about systems and delegation. And that's hard for folks to do from time to time, but it works and you're a perfect example of that. So thanks for sharing that. That's really cool. What do you think the future of land investing looks like? I mean, folks are worried about investing in real estate and there's definitely some asset classes that are having a hard time right now. What do you think the future of land investing looks like?
I still think the land is the safest of those, just because there's so much land and there are not many players out there. And so for the category of the land which we have been playing in, there has been no involvement of the bank because we are buying it cash and we're selling it either on the seller financing or the cash. So there's not much involvement on that from the bank either, even from the buyers, because they are not taking the bank loan. They have the cash or refinance it for them. So I don't notice much difference. But on the bigger price point, which we were thinking about, the initial plan was that 50% of our business will stay on the profit margins and the other 50% would be for the bigger ones. I think we'll need to just choose the right kind of properties with the right characteristics and right market. We'll need to just be picky about that because we'll be needing the bank financing for that. And we need to make sure that we just vet that deal a lot more, strongly in current market for sure. But I still think I'm not worried about the land as much as my rental or multifamily or other things. So we don't plan to purchase any of that right now. Probably the RV park, which we just purchased, probably one more by the end of the day and the end of the year. And then more land deals. I would still think land is what I understand the most. And I'm able to vet the deals way better in that area. And I still think it's the safest of all the real estate so far, even in the current market.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. The RV park, I'd be remiss if we didn't mention that. We were talking a little bit about it offline. Do you mind just kind of sharing a little bit more about that and how the RV park came to be, as well as the value add opportunity you have there?
Yeah. So as I was saying earlier, like our plan was to do kind of bigger deals of bigger acreages with multiple 6-figure profits, which was the plan to do one bigger deal like that per quarter for this year. So first quarter, we did one deal and we kind of cut it up into multiple pieces and the lots we are selling. So we kind of realized that goal. For second quarter, we started to kind of look for those deals. And then we got one deal in contract, which had the potential to be converted into the RV park because there were already 10 RV pads there in this 5-acre lot. And when we were buying, they showed us the plat that it could have like 22 RV pads on that, but it was not approved. And we started to kind of work with the county, we questioned them and stuff like that. And then we realized that it could even allow 44 pads on the same acreage if we provide more amenities to the residents. And it's not a nightly park. It's usually most of the residents are there for more than a month and a year and stuff like that. This is a long-term RV park. So we are currently building the plan where from 10 RV pads, we'll just go up to 44 RV pads. And if that plan gets approved, then I think we'll be able to just quadruple the value of the pad, even though there's going to be some development costs, but I still think it's going to be way, way worth it. And I'm just so excited for that. At the most, if we cannot do the 44, at least we could do 22. Even at that, we'll be able to kind of just double the value of the property and the amount of the cash flow. Because we have already analyzed the nearby RV parks, and they stay almost full. So there's always people looking for RV park in that area. So we know those from the local connections we have that whenever we get this approval, hopefully in a few months, and once we do the constructions, it would get full pretty fast.
That's awesome. What a cool deal. Did you find that through your off-market channels and similar to how you found other?
I mean, our whole goal was to kind of find it to the off-market, but we found this listed in the market. And one of the realtors whom we had met before and told her that what we're looking for, she was the one who brought this deal to us.
That's cool. Yeah. And the cool thing about RV parks, I mean, you're putting in a pad, electricity, some utilities probably, but still not a whole lot in terms of development costs. Yeah. And like you said, even the long-term ones are even better because they're coming in, they're staying for a while, and you have that guaranteed cash flow. RV parks are really cool. I have some friends that are investing heavily in them, and it's a really cool opportunity.
Yeah, I'm loving them for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it's cool to have one that you can add 4 times the amount of pads to. Yeah. So that's a great value add opportunity as well. Well, excited to hear how that plays out for you in the future. Very cool. Well, what's next for you? You've kind of hit on that already, some bigger deals each quarter. What's next for you for Fast Fire MD and the coaching program and everything else as well?
Yeah, one of the other projects which I started earlier this year, which was not planned whatsoever, was this Fast Fire MD. Yeah. And then the physician group who were interested in fast firing with land, because land was something which was unheard of. And when I started to kind of speak in certain groups and stuff like that, a lot of people started to DM me. So I found it easier to kind of start a group where I would go to kind of just educate them about it. And everybody was interested in a course, which we wrapped up recently. And I just love that how they're evaluating the deals already, putting the offers out already. So we'll be doing another launch in September for that again, just because I really think land is something which many people don't have taught. And I really think it's just so awesome opportunity for others. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like it. I might be signing up for that next course. Is that a live course or is it recorded, or how's the structure?
So it's going to be recorded weekly with the live content every week so that we can discuss in person and everything.
That's awesome. How was that kind of getting a course set up and recorded and so forth? Was that pretty challenging for you?
Yeah, in April, definitely it was challenging. As I told you, my goals were very clear coming in this new year that what I was going to be doing. So my business goals, my own land investing business goal, those changes and stuff like that, I had to put them on hold pretty much from April to June because, this course ran for 3 months. So I had to put everything on hold. I almost neglected the whole team, but I was surprised. Not necessarily surprised, but I was happy that we were still selling land and we were still acquiring land. So I didn't have to do much else other than just reviewing and making sure that the land which we were selling is fine and the one which we're acquiring is fine. And that made me happy to see that even though I cut down way more time away from the current land business with the current team and the structure we have, it still functioned. But for 3-4 months, definitely I was kind of very distracted. And right now I'm kind of just coming back in the rhythm, setting up and, achieving those goals which I had set up earlier. The team should be able to evaluate the bigger deals. So for past month, I've been just kind of working on processes for that. But I think by the time we get in start the launch September 1, the course is already recorded and stuff like that. We have the framework. I don't think it's going to be that hard this time.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, and cool to see how well the business performs still, even with you kind of removed. I mean, I think that's the dream as an entrepreneur of like, how can I keep growing my business while I'm stepping back a little bit from the business as well? So that's really cool to see. Well, as we start to wrap things up, one question I like to ask is, do you have any advice that you'd give to, say, a new attending or even a resident who's just getting started who needs some financial advice? Do you have any advice for them?
I really think we need to, as physicians, like all our life, and we have spent so many years trying to be a physician, trying to be a perfect physician, stuff like that. I think we lose track of like, what if MDs took it off our name? What else can we do and should we have? Because during the pandemic, I heard from a lot of my physician friends. They were like, oh, I just couldn't even leave medicine, but I wanted to. My family was so stressed out, but I didn't have any other skills to support me. So I didn't. So everybody seemed to be so scared, right? So I really think we need to have, not just as physician, as a human being, I really think we shouldn't depend on just one career to be 100% everything. Like for me, my plan was never to leave medicine. I left it in pandemic for my own, like prioritizing my own health and family. Sometimes I realized for the longest time, I did not have my priorities clear. Like being physician and serving patients was the top. And then after that, kids and family were, third was my health. And now it's all around. And I'm like, okay, my health and my everything, what I need to do for myself, that's the top. Then is a family. And then is the work I do. So the work can fit being physician or not being physician, because I noticed that I'm way more happier, way more calmer than I have ever been in my life. But I was so used to being stressed as physician, I didn't know any other life. So I really think just give yourself that breathing room. Like, we can be very busy, just getting out, just thinking, journaling, whatever it takes for you, just to realize, what you would want your ideal life to look like. And you might even skip, if you're not a physician, what would your ideal life to look like? I really think that exercise helped me so much. I never dreamed that, I would love my ideal day to look like, I go to work and there's no code whole day and I see 5 patients. It was not about that at all, right? And those days doesn't need to be vacation. We can make those our dream days to be our everyday days too. We have to just kind of plan in that way so that we can live more fulfilling life rather than just being that physician who we are trained to be.
Wow, that's an incredible answer. Completely agree. I think that's a cool thing that you found with land investing in your business, and I'm starting to find with real estate is it gives you that freedom. It gives you the freedom to practice how you want to, see as many patients as you want to. And maybe that is full-time practice and that's awesome. Or maybe that's working part-time, or maybe it's just volunteering at a free clinic, who knows? But I think it gives you that stability and flexibility to be able to do that. And I think we don't get enough education financially as physicians on even how to do that or how to set yourself up for that. So thanks for doing what you do. Thanks for being willing to share that with other physicians. And I'm sure, your story is super inspiring. So I know folks are going to be really interested and want to reach out to you and know more. How can folks reach out to you if they want to know more about you or connect with you and get involved with land investing?
I think the fastformd.com is a great website where they can reach out to me or contact me through, or it can be found on Facebook and Instagram, Mamta Kumar MD. So
awesome. Well, before we wrap things up, is there anything that you wanted to hit on?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, this was great. Thank you so much for your time. With that, it's been Dr. Kumar and Dr. Shlo on another episode of Physicians and Properties, signing off.
Thank you.
Hey, real quick, if you're still listening to this, I'm assuming you got value from it. So I need your help specifically. My 2-year vision with this podcast is to help 100,000 physicians learn how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want. There are 2 main ways that a podcast grows. One is through ratings and reviews, and the other is word of mouth. If you can please leave me a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as send this to 1 to 2 friends that you think would get value from it, we can reach the physicians that we want to reach. Thanks in advance, and talk to you on the next episode. Please note that the information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only. It should not be considered financial or medical advice. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the host and the guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense or the United States Air Force.